for you.
Hi everyone, I am Steve and welcome back to Crime Point for you. Today we are diving into a controversial and still unresolved case from the UK. A tragic murder that shocked the community, divided public opinion, and raised serious questions about the criminal justice system. Some cases never fade. They stay open not because they are forgotten, but because the truth refuses to reveal itself. This is the story of Billie Jo Jenkins.
Crime Point for you. Subscribe now.
The murder of Billie Jo Jenkins remains one of the most complex and debated cases in modern British criminal history. It is a story of tragedy, suspicion, evolving forensic science, and unanswered questions that linger to this day. To understand what happened, we must return to February 15, 1997, in the seaside town of Hastings in East Sussex, England. Hastings was a quiet community, the kind of place where families felt safe, and where daily routines passed without much disturbance. 13-year-old Billie Jo Jenkins lived with her foster family, the Jenkins household. She had experienced a difficult early childhood, and being placed with the Jenkins family was intended to give her stability, safety, and a new beginning. By all accounts, Billie Jo was bright, creative, and energetic. She was well liked at school and had hopes for her future. On the afternoon of February 15th, Billie Jo was in the backyard of the family home, painting a patio door. It was a simple, ordinary task on a normal day. Her foster father, Siôn Jenkins, left the house with two of his daughters to run a short errand to a nearby store. According to his account, they were gone for no more than half an hour before returning home. When Jenkins and the children walked into the yard, they found Billie Jo lying on the ground, severely injured. She had been struck at least 5 times on the head with a metal tent spike. The attack was violent, sudden, and left no chance of survival. Jenkins later stated that he panicked, attempted to help Billie Jo, and then ran for assistance. But the scene was already beyond hope. The community was shocked. A young girl had been killed in her own home in broad daylight. But what followed would become the defining controversy of the case. Within hours, the police focused their attention on one suspect.
It was a crime that shocked us all. A 13-year-old girl battered to death on her doorstep and in broad daylight. But although the murder of Billie Jo Jenkins received huge publicity back in 1997, but on February 15, 1997, Billie Jo was murdered while she was painting patio doors at the family's home in Hastings.
Billie Jo was loving and supportive to her 4 sisters.
Siôn Jenkins. There was no sign of forced entry, no clear witness, and no obvious alternative explanation. Then, forensic testing revealed microscopic spots of Billie Jo's blood on Jenkins's clothing. This finding became the core of the prosecution's argument. In 1998, just a year after the murder, Siôn Jenkins stood trial. The prosecution claimed that the blood droplets were caused by high-velocity impact spatter, created during the act of striking Billie Jo. The defense argued that the same blood pattern could have resulted from Jenkins lifting or shaking Billie Jo in a desperate attempt to help her. However, the interpretation of forensic bloodstain patterns at the time was far less developed than it is today, and the jury accepted the prosecution's explanation. In 1998, Siôn Jenkins was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. For 9 years, he remained in prison, continuing to insist on his innocence. But over time, major questions about the reliability of the blood evidence began to emerge. New expert analysis suggested that the blood spots were not sufficient to prove an attack, and could indeed have come from close contact with Billie Jo after she had been injured. Because of this, the case returned to court. In 2004, a second trial was held. The jury could not reach a verdict. In 2005, a third trial took place. Once again, the jury was unable to agree on guilt. Finally, in 2006, after 3 trials and nearly a decade behind bars, the Court of Appeal ruled that the evidence was not strong enough to prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. The conviction was quashed, and Siôn Jenkins was released. However, the decision did not declare him innocent. It simply acknowledged that the evidence had never been conclusive. This distinction is crucial. To this day, no one has been definitively identified as Billie Jo's killer. Some theories suggest the possibility of an unknown attacker. Witnesses in the area reported seeing a man with mental health difficulties near the neighborhood at the time of the murder. However, no physical evidence ever linked him to the crime. Other theories suggest the attack may have been impulsive, unplanned, or opportunistic. But without new forensic discoveries, these remain possibilities, not answers. The murder of Billie Jo Jenkins leaves behind questions about how evidence is interpreted, how quickly assumptions can shape an investigation, and how deeply a community can be affected when justice remains uncertain. Billie Jo was only 13 years old. She had dreams, friendships, and a life that should have continued. Her memory endures, even when the truth does not. More than 25 years later, the case remains open, unresolved, and studied as an example of the delicate balance between forensic science, legal judgment, and the pursuit of truth. Until new evidence emerges, the mystery remains.
In your view, who killed your daughter?
I don't know, but someone entered my home and murdered Billie.
And you could never get over that?
That will never go. That will always remain with me.
And that was the story of Billie Jo Jenkins' case. A tragic crime, a broken investigation, and a justice system still looking for answers. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to the channel Crime Point for you for more true crime investigations. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.